For this lecture on auditing, we're going to discuss the drivers of audit quality, so we'll be hitting the gas. The basic standards for financial audit quality are performing the audit in accordance with GAAS, or the Generally Accepted Auditing Standards. Now, those standards are comprised of three areas. First off is the general standards, the proficiency and independence of the auditor, and the due professional care in what the auditor does. There's also fieldwork standards dealing with the planning of the audit work, gathering of evidence, testing that evidence, substantiating the numbers, and reporting standards, the presentation of the audit report itself, and the development of the auditor's opinion. Second, it's providing a reasonable assurance that the audited financial statements and disclosures are not material and misstated, so there's no material errors, there's no material fraud in those financial statements, and it's presented in accordance with GAAP, Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. To achieve audit quality, the Financial Reporting Council, FRC, an independent regulator in the UK and Ireland that is responsible for regulating auditors, accountants, and actuaries, came up with an audit quality framework. And that framework has 5 primary drivers of audit quality. First is audit firm culture, then skills and personal qualities of audit partners and staff, the effectiveness of the audit process, the reliability and usefulness of audit reporting, and the factors outside of the control of the auditors that will affect the audit quality. Now, these first 3 are really about the audit firm: the culture of the firm, the skills, the effectiveness of the audit process. Now, I'm not going to talk about skills and personal qualities in this particular lecture. You can always go to my skills and knowledge requirements of auditors and audit teams to get some more information on that. When it comes to the reliability and usefulness of the audit report, that's the users and also the audit committee. Now, again, the users is another lecture I've got out there as far as decision makers and how they use those external audit reports. So go ahead and review that lecture if you need a refresher on that. And then there's the factors outside the control of the auditor that affect audit quality. That can come from the client, can come from government, can come from a pandemic. That could affect the quality of an audit. So let's start with audit firm culture. And by culture, I mean the work environment that you're in. So as I go through these items, see if these are traits that the CPA firm you work for or that you're going to be working for has. So the culture should include providing the right resources and enough time to perform a quality audit. The right resources include the right mix of people: supervisors, staff, experience levels, experience in that industry that you're auditing. And then, are they providing you with quality systems to perform that audit so that you have the tools you need to be successful? So you want to ensure that the firm has the right balance of profit focus and product delivery without jeopardizing that audit quality. And by that I mean, do they value and reward audit quality? Do they have personnel evaluations, and do they have good compensation practices? Do they provide training to the audit staff? Do they seek guidance when it's needed? All these are qualities of a good firm. Do they monitor that audit quality after the audit? So overall, do they have a good ethical attitude to do the right thing? Next, let's discuss the effectiveness of the audit process. There are 4 key factors required to ensure an effective audit process. First, is the audit methodology well structured? Do you have good planning? Do you have programs in place to follow so that you have quality performance during the audit? Next, quality technical support. Is it available to you? When an auditor comes across an unfamiliar audit challenge, they want to know that there's a person, a system, a literature, something that can help them resolve those challenges. Do they embody ethical standards? Do they have integrity? Do they perform objectively? And are they independent? And finally, the auditor's ability to collect proper evidence is not constrained by financial pressures. Okay, next, let's think out of the box for a second and compare audit ineffectiveness to airplane crashes. I know there's nowhere near the tragedy that audits have compared to airplane crashes, but see me through on the theory behind this because Boeing did a study of airplane crashes, and approximately 15% of the crashes happened during the takeoff or initial ascent of the plane, and 50% happened during the landing or the initial descent of the plane. Well, it's kind of the same in audits that are ineffective. Poor audit planning at the beginning can result in an ineffective audit, but the majority of problems happen when you're trying to finish the audit to meet a deadline. You don't have all the information you need for the proper conclusions. You're not able to put it all together and really justify the audit opinion you come to or the numbers that you're looking at, but you need to meet that deadline, so you experience audit ineffectiveness or the audit crash. Okay, nowhere near as tragic as an airplane crash, but you get the point of where the problems happen and where the audit becomes ineffective. Now let's talk about the key factors related to reliability and usefulness of audit reporting. First off, are the audit reports clearly expressing the auditor's opinion on the financial statements so the users understand that? Next, has the auditor correctly evaluated the financial statements and their conformity to GAAP so that the users can trust those financial statements? And regarding the audit committee, has the auditor clearly communicated the audit scope? And what is audit scope? Well, that's the focus or objective of the audit. It's the extent of the activities that will be performed, which include the boundaries, which is the areas we'll cover, but also the areas that we're not going to cover. Next, let's review the threats to objectivity. Those include the self-interest threat, where the auditor has personal or financial gain in the audit, so it really clouds their independence. Next is the self-review threat, where the auditor has done some work on the financial statements, so in a way that can help prepare the financial statements, and then they're turning around and auditing those financial statements. That would be a conflict or a threat to the auditor's objectivity. Next is the familiarity or trust threat, and that's when you've just become so familiar with a client that you trust whatever they give you and you kind of let professional skepticism go out the door. That can be a threat to objectivity. Next is the intimidation threat, and that's when the client is almost bullying you. Get this done by this certain date, or you just need to believe this number and this estimate that I've given you and move on with your audit. That's an intimidation threat that could affect the reliability and usefulness of the audit. The auditor might come across important risks that they identified during the audit that they need to share with the audit committee. They also may come across judgments that were made that they feel are important that they also share with the audit committee. And then they'll also identify improvements that should be considered or made to the client's financial accounting and reporting. So factors outside of the control of the auditor would include client corporate governance. So if they have an ineffective or unknowledgeable audit committee, that could affect the performance of the audit. Also, if the client is putting time constraints or deadlines that are just not realistic or achievable on the auditor. You've also got government or regulatory agencies. They may have requirements or changes or even lawsuits that could affect the audit while it's in process. There could be economic or industry events, like catastrophic events, catastrophic economic events, but also things like the pandemic. Think about the audit world. We'd always go out to a client and perform an audit. During the pandemic, we couldn't do that. You've got to come up with alternate ways to be able to perform that audit in a quality manner. So I hope this has given you a good overview on the drivers of audit quality so that you can go out there and start hitting the gas.